that. Thank you so much. If everyone can take a seat. We're a little tiny bit behind, but we're going to still try to get going quickly now. Just a quick reminder, if you guys on everyone's table, if you like what's happening here, if you like lookouts, if you want to know more about these candidates, about these races, about everything that's happening in this community, we really would really appreciate your membership and support. We want to keep putting these on. So there's a QR code on your tables. It's 52% off tonight, $99 a year. And we'd really love to have you support us. So thank you again for coming, and we're going to move on now to a different race. So this race is also historic. First time we'll have a city-wide elected mayor in Santa Cruz in the city's 160-year history, so that's a pretty big thing. It's a new job, it's an important one. It's a chance for someone to make a mark in 4 years in office instead of the 1-year rotating mayor that the city has always had. We have two quite different candidates tonight, and tonight we're going to get to hear from both of them and learn a little bit more about them. So we have Fred Keeley and we have Joy Schendledecker here tonight with us. Same thing. Yes. I'm going to ask each candidate to introduce themselves, 90 seconds. Same rules apply as the last question and answer session. So, we didn't flip a coin.
I don't have one in my pocket. Somebody else can flip.
Let's see, I've got an ATM card in my pocket.
Well, let's just do it. I'll just be a dictator for a moment, and I'll let Joy go first.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Fred. So, thank you to Lookout for organizing, to Jody for moderating, and for the staff at Hotel Paradox for making this happen. Also, thanks to my campaign team for bringing me here and helping me get to this point. Thank you for joining me in the dialogue. And thank you to all of you for coming and participating in the democratic process. That's what I'm all about. So here are some quick answers to the top questions that I'm asked. What do you stand for? Justice in all things, housing, jobs, and environment. Of course, there's a long list of other issues that are important to me, and I hope we touch on them tonight. Why am I running? Because I've come to realize the importance of local politics in setting budgets, passing ordinances, and shaping our infrastructure, and I want to have a say in all those things. Another reason is because no one else stood up to challenge my opponent, and it would be completely lame to have our first directly elected mayor be simply appointed. Sometimes I also hear, I really like your politics, but I'm not sure you have enough experience to do the job. And I hope that this evening I can reassure people who like my politics that I do have the experience, the dedication, the temperament, and the experience to be a strong leader for the everyday people of Santa Cruz. Thank you so much.
Jody, thank you, and thank you, Joy. Friends and neighbors, my name is Fred Keeley. I have lived in this community since 1977, and I've dedicated my life to public service. For 24 years, was an elected official as a county supervisor, county treasurer, state legislator, and for another 20 years have been working in what I hope is, I'm not overstating it, I hope, as a community leader and as an educator. I teach in the graduate program of public administration at San Jose State. Secretary Panetta and I teach a Santa Clara Law School class entitled Achieving Consensus in a Partisan Environment. I got called to duty by the county of Santa Cruz to head up a transportation funding task force a few years ago, which led to the good Measure D, not the bad Measure D, that was on the ballot in June. The city also asked me if what I would do is manage the public safety task force that came into existence after the murder of Butch and Elizabeth, our two police officers, a few years ago, and then most recently to be the convener of the Council Advisory Committee on Homelessness, which made a series of recommendations to the city. So my life has been spent in public service and in dedication to the betterment of the community. It's a privilege to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So Fred, you're first now. If you do win, what does success look like for you?
Success looks like,
Wait, I'm not done.
success looks like 3 or 4 things.
Wait, Santa Cruz of the future, January 2027, what has success looked like?
Success looks like this, that, and I suspect this is true of Joy as well, when we're walking precincts, when we're talking to people, we kind of get the same, I suspect the same issues percolate to the surface, none of which are a surprise to you. Homelessness, affordable housing, climate change, justice overall in our community, revitalizing our economic base in the city. Success to me looks like this, that we will have, as a city, built shelter, navigation center, permanent supportive transitional housing for those experiencing homelessness. Secondly, a public funding source to increase the very low and low income housing stock in our community. With regard to climate change, that we have drought-proofed our water system, which is the major goal, I think, of the city with respect to protection against the ravages of climate change. And lastly, that we can, in fact, take those actions necessary to revitalize the small business core of our community, which was largely devastated after the '89 earthquake and came back, and then devastated again by the arrival of COVID in our community, and to bring that locally owned small business community, which is the beating heart of our economy, and that is back and robust.
Joy?
Well, I would like us to see a city that puts people over profits, and that can be applied to all sorts of different areas, so that when we build our necessary infrastructure, when we invest in our commercial spaces and community spaces, it's really serving the people who already live here and who we want to live here, and that would be respecting a diversity, a socioeconomic diversity, racial diversity. When we build in a neighborhood, it should be community-led and either preserve the diversity that's already there or increase the diversity to make it more encompassing and vibrant and culturally rich. So I would like to see that applied to environmental justice, housing justice, environmental economic justice, to the way that our schools are funded, so that we have plenty of staff and teachers who are paid well. We need to pay our city workers well. Overall, we need to raise wages and lower rent. So I think yes, people over profits, and using a justice lens in all things. Raise up everybody. We all will benefit from that.
That was very broad. Let's get into some really specifics now. Let's talk specifically about the big hard issue, the benchlands. Joy, this is for you first.
Okay.
So obviously homelessness, biggest issue. One of the biggest issues in our area. The city is currently in the process of closing the benchlands, as we've discussed already. Do you agree with the city's current policy? Do you think the city should continue what it's doing? Should it speed up the process, or should it stop it? Or do you have some other solution?
I think that it's incredibly misguided for the city to be clearing the benchlands without having built trust with the people who live there, so that they are accepting shelter that is offered to them. And we know that there aren't enough spaces for everybody. The math doesn't add up. So I do think that we need to relocate people from a floodplain as winter arrives, and we hope that we get rain. Last year, with the flooding that happened in the Benchlands, it is a miracle that nobody died. I spent a couple of hours down there as the floodwaters were rising, trying to talk somebody out of their tent and going to the parking garage to see what was being offered to people. And it was completely, excuse me, but it was a little bit of a shit show. And I do not blame the city workers who were there trying to help people. They did not have the resources that they needed. And our county and city emergency plans do not have provisions for the frontline community of people who live outside, for people that do not have housing. And that is unforgivable, right? We need to protect our frontline communities.
Just to be clear, would you close it? Would you stop? Would you close the camp? Would you stop the closure?
We need to
What
find
would you
other
do?
places for people to go.
So keep closing it, but
I think we need to slow down the timeline. This is relentless for the people who live there. I went and observed and took some video footage for the last phase of clearing phase 4. Most people are just pushing into the other areas. There are some people who have accepted shelter. There are some people that we see in our community without tents, you know, just trying to shelter where they can, and people have squished in.
thank you. Fred, same question. Continue it, slow it down, accelerate it.
Well, I think this probably is an area where we see, Joy and I see things slightly differently anyway. And that is, the Benchlands is not a park. If you have the impression that it's part of the park system, it's not. It's a flood control area. And it is designed so that every winter, the San Lorenzo River can go into the Benchlands and we can control flooding from going into residential and commercial areas. That's what the Army Corps of Engineers designed. That's what the Benchlands is. It's not a place to have folks who have virtually no resources as the winter is coming. Don't slow this down at all. I've been here since 1977. I spent many years in the county building every winter watching the floodwaters inundate the Benchlands, and it doesn't happen in 2 days. It doesn't happen over an 8-hour period. It happens now, and it comes unexpectedly to people. It comes unexpectedly to that space. And so I think it is a danger to human life to allow folks to be in that community. Having said that, then the community has the city and the county have the obligation for safe places for folks to go. The Overlook Campground, the Armory, the 1220 River Street, the Association of Faith Communities, all of those resources brought to bear. But that's not the end. That's the immediate first step in order to provide safety for those folks, because it is an absolute immediate danger to life and limb to allow people to continue to be there.
Thank you. Okay, Joy, this is for you. Do you think the people of Santa Cruz have the right to camp on city streets? What is it about Santa Cruz that causes people to camp here rather than in other parts of the county? And as mayor, what are you going to do about it?
You mean people that don't have housing?
Yes, so people who are
Yes.
camp.
Okay, so people who are, I consider the vast majority of people who are living outside in Santa Cruz, they are internally displaced economic refugees. They have lost their housing primarily for economic reasons. That, you know, number one, full stop. 2/3 of the people who stay on our streets are from here. They literally are neighbors, colleagues, friends, and family. So I think that no, people should have housing. People shouldn't have to sleep on the streets. We have an economic system that hyper-financializes housing. As long as we have that system, I'm not expecting that to go away anytime soon, but as long as we have that system, people will lose their housing for financial reasons. Their wages go down, inflation goes up, rents go up. This has been happening for decades, and it has only intensified over the last few years. It is no surprise that people are losing their housing when we build 10 to 20% of our housing, generally, for 50% of the people.
So should the city set up limits on where people can go? I mean, how would you see this? And only really Santa Cruz has this huge problem of unhoused. Right?
Seriously?
Well, I mean, only,
Seriously?
I mean, not only,
Sorry.
but more than
I
other
mean, I did
cities.
not
No,
mean
no,
any
no. I don't mean
respect.
only Santa Cruz in the whole. But
It's
I mean,
true,
in
we
our
have-
county, Santa Cruz is really a place where.
Oh, you mean within our county?
Within our county.
Oh, within
of
our
course,
county,
of
out of the
course.
cities.
Of
Well,
course.
I mean, there's a reason why Santa Cruz City has people who stay here when they don't have housing, and that's because we're the county seat. We have Emmeline campus with health services and mental health services. We have the county courthouse. There are people who lose their housing or cannot get housing because they're on parole. Because for economic reasons, they've declared bankruptcy, they have no credit. What people have to go through to apply for an apartment, I'm sure everywhere, but definitely in this town, you have to have an excellent credit score. You have to have an excellent income. Section 8 housing lists are closed and have years-long waits. So I don't, you know, people have a reason to be here aside from community, and people have a right to be near their community, where their roots are, where they have people that can help take care of them, where they can share resources. But we're the county seat. We're the county seat,
Thank you.
ultimately.
Thank you. Fred, same question.
Let me hear it again. No, I want to
So
make sure I
that's
answer
a
it.
question about do you think that people, what we should do about the people of Santa Cruz, the unhoused problem in Santa Cruz? Do people have, we talk a lot about, do people have the right to be where they are? So the right to camp wherever they want to, the right to be there. And, you know, if they're unhoused, should we limit that? And why do you think that more people are coming to Santa Cruz in our county than any other city? You don't see the problem in Capitola and
Yeah,
Aptos and
right.
other places.
I think Joy got this largely right in terms of an agreement on that issue. That we are the county seat, Emmeline's here, the courts are here, and so on. All of that is absolutely true. I do think that these public spaces belong to everybody. The housed community and the unhoused community, whether it's a street, a sidewalk, public space, whatever it is, that belongs to all of us, not one group over another. So, or one constituency over another. So the question, as I see it, comes down to what should the city be doing? Because this is an opportunity to talk about what I think the roles of government are. County governments are subdivisions of the state of California. They exist within countywide structure to deliver health, human services, mental health services, and so on. That's what counties do. They stand in the shoes of the state and the federal government. Temporary assistance for needy families, Medi-Cal, mental health services, all of that. That belongs to counties. What cities do is build things. And I think the responsibility of the city of Santa Cruz is to build shelter, navigation centers, permanent supportive housing. And I think there are very practical ways to get to do that. We saw with Measure H a few years ago, the affordable housing bond that Don Lane and I co-authored, that although that did not pass countywide, it got a 70% yes vote within the city of Santa Cruz. And to me, that's an indication that the voters of the city of Santa Cruz are willing to increase their taxes in order to provide those brick and mortar permanent support for those experiencing homelessness. And I think that that's an appropriate role for the city of Santa Cruz. The state and county should stay in their lane to provide health, human services, and so on. City governments are not designed. There's no city health department. There is no city mental health department. There's no city, right, that is not what cities do. Cities build things. And they have a really important, very significant role in those experiencing homelessness to provide those services. That makes sense to me in terms of the county's role.
Thank you so much.